Welcome to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary. This is your host, ScottyB. Friends, another solo episode for you. Astrovoid's not here this week, and I do not have a guest, but I did want to cover for you a topic that has come up a couple of times and that I noticed that more people tend to gravitate towards on both the podcast and the YouTube channel. It's about making money in cosplay. Of course, the big part of that is Patreon. So we're going to talk about Patreon this week. We're going to talk about working on a Patreon feed, which is something that I'm doing myself, trying to get our Patreon started and just the different things that are going to be going on in that space in order to fund some very fun, very big projects that are going to be coming up in 2022. First, make sure you hit the like button if you like the video, the unlike button if you don't like the video. It doesn't make any difference to me. It's your opinion of the content that you see here every week. You can subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so that you know when we come out with new and exciting content as the seasons progress. If you have a comment, please leave one below, and all of the little fun details for where to find us and how to follow us other spaces are in the notes and description below. YouTube is a place where you can monetize. So I will just tell you up front, the name of the game on YouTube is to get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, which gets you into the bucket for monetization. And that will start to accumulate as you go. It's not a ton of money when you're a small YouTuber, but all of the little things that you do add up. So a lot of people do turn to Patreon because Patreon helps to support creators, and you can use YouTube as a funnel to get into that space where people can then subscribe to you for a month and on a monthly basis, and you don't have to like drive them to a website where you have to set up commerce and figure out subscriptions through something like Squarespace, which we'll be doing a little bit later. But Patreon is a good place to start for creators. It gives you a lot of different options on your ability to offer content, to offer a little bit different, not free stuff to your audience, whether that be prints, whether that be different video content, different audio content. If it's, due to a length, maybe you want longer videos on Patreon than you have on your YouTube channel. Maybe you want to go a little deeper. Maybe you're building groups so that you can kind of group coach people on certain things. We'll talk about maybe a little bit of that in terms of Patreon for Heroes. Or you may just have other, merch and things like that that you want to offer to people who subscribe to you over time. Really, one of the things that I caution on is Instagram as a platform for funneling money. Like you don't get any, there's no monetization with Instagram. Everyone wants to grow their Instagram channel, but the reality is your Instagram isn't going to make you money necessarily. It could lead to things that make you money. You can have more people that funnel into other things, but ultimately, the reason why you come to my content, or the reason why you look or find a video that talks about making money on Patreon, is because Instagram isn't the thing that is going to make you money. It's really just the base. It's the start of the funnel. It's where people see you first, and you lead them to your link tree, or you lead them to your website, or you bring them into Patreon and say, hey, this is where, if you really want to support what is produced on the show and the content that comes out, that you can now vote with your dollars, so to speak, that there's free stuff. Of course, we always have free resources available, but then you have paid content, and a small number of people who come to your channel will know you, like you, and trust you, and then find value with what you do and start to invest in your platform. What you want to do on Patreon is up to you, but you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're producing on Patreon adds a lot more value than your standard content does. So whether you're signing prints, or whether you're producing behind the scenes content, or whether you're trying to bring more people into your feed, or like live or recorded messages or recorded content and videos that you would not normally share in any other space, it's really just exclusive to the group that is closest to you and the things that you want to share. A few things about that, though. A lot of cosplayers do tend to shy away from that because either they can't keep it straight, or they're too afraid that people are going to leak the information that they share inside of Patreon. So you have to be very careful with that for what you share inside of Patreon, because a lot of people there might not be so tight-lipped about the things that you are doing. They might drop it into comments and kind of like spoil things for other people. So really, You can spin that a couple of different ways. You can sort of use that as a point of advertising for Patreon and content that goes in there. People do mention things that you're doing, or you're like, oh, the secret cosplay or something that hasn't been released yet, and you talk about it in your Patreon feed. Those people then talk about it in your regular feed. This can build a little bit of intrigue, and then people start to see like, oh, well, they're sharing this in this other space. So if I want to, it's like pay-per-view. You know, if I want if I want it early, I'll prepay, or I could just wait like everybody else would and see it when it does come out for free. You know, that's something that happens inside of the cosplay space. Because I'm just one person, I can't offer a lot of group coaching and getting on the Zoom calls constantly with people. I can't have a huge client list or anything like that. So keep that in mind when you are also producing content on your Patreon, that you want to make sure that it is scalable for you to be able to manage. So if it's just unmanageable and you're trying to like gain more money through Patreon, but you haven't quite reached that level where you can do everything full time and really focus on bringing a lot of content into Patreon, you can get a little bit pigeonholed, or you can get a little bit of into a corner that you've painted for yourself in terms of being able to bring value to people on Patreon. I also don't want to say too much about Avalon or the sort of things that I'm going to be building on Patreon in the future, because I do want this to stay a little bit more evergreen. And if I commit to whatever I happen to be building on Patreon today, when you come back in a year and see this video, you're gonna be like, well, none of that is actually there. I might not even be on Patreon anymore in the future. The website will probably still be here, but you know, that's one of the things with Patreon is it can come and go. Like you can get on it, and then trying to feed that beast becomes very difficult, and people don't really catch on, or you find that they don't want to invest in your platform, or at least very many people don't, and that can be very frustrating for some small creators. So yes, you have to be careful, and I am going to be also careful so that we don't misinform you or bring up a bunch of misinformation for what that will become in the future. So I would definitely caution on that part of Patreon if you were building anything. But when we do come out with content on Patreon, we will make sure that it is being focused on. So what we want to make sure is for all the different things that we create, that the prime content or the premier content is going to be inside of Patreon. That will be where the most production value goes. That will be where the most time is spent giving that community everything that they need and the things that they want, and giving them the ability to morph what that becomes. So if it's your dollars, you get to vote with that, and we want to make sure that the content inside of there is helping you, exactly you, in that space, versus more of a broad subject or a broad stroke like it is here on the channel, or like it is in the podcast or on the website, or any of those other spaces where we produce content to share with you for either an educational or entertainment value. The other side of this is like, why do I want to make money? Why is it so important that creating these things and cosplay being a hobby, that it is so important for us all to try and make money at it? Well, the idea here for us is that we want to make money. We want to create Patreon. We want to create these different places where we can be contributed to in order to help more in this space, contribute more to cosplay, contribute to creating those projects that have higher value for you as a watcher, as someone in the community, that you can see the kind of cool things that are going on, that we can share the start to finish, like how did we ever manage to do this? We want to be able to create more, and really not in terms of making a get rich scheme. I don't care if we make so much money at this. It's not about making $1 million in an afternoon. It's about having the funds available to continue to create the content, to continue to scale the content, and to continue to add value to the community. So that's what we want to do, is we want you to be successful. We want you to grow, if that is where you want to go with this. If you want cosplay to be your hobby, we want to make sure that there's resources for you to be better at your hobby or to feel more comfortable with it. If you are someone who wants to monetize, we want to make sure that you are getting enough value out of our platform so that you feel confident in your ability to scale and to grow your own viewerships, your own fandom, the people who come to you. Because, hey, I don't live in a vacuum, and we don't take ourselves that seriously on this platform. There are a lot of creators in this space, and we applaud them all. So that is where I will leave it. It takes work, it takes skill building, it takes patience, and it takes a lot of focus to get on YouTube or any other platform and to convince people that you are someone that they want to invest their hard-earned dollars in. Thanks so much for being here this week, everyone. Of course, you know what to do. It's the end of the video, all the end of the video stuff. And if you have comments, leave them below or go and find us online at www.heroesofcosplaysanctuary.com. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.